Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
We're
yeah, yeah,
not.
yeah, yeah,
Stop,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Doc.
yeah, 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 yeah. Okay.
Stop.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Fucking-
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Tired. Alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So eventful evening.
Yeah.
It was nice.
Very nice.
It was good to hang out. It was
I needed it. Upcoming
yeah.
upcoming move. A lot of stressful things going on and needed a
Well, I mean, by
release.
this point you are in the midst of moving, right?
By this point, yeah. We are. Yeah, as a matter of fact, yeah. Most, if not everything, is separated out where it needs to be, and it's merely a
Yeah.
waiting for movers to come in and sack everything and take it out.
Sack everything.
Well, I'm still a little like off put that.
You don't touch things, they
Yeah,
do it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's explicitly stated, do
So
not empty drawers, do not. It's weird.
I've only ever heard of people that have gotten that service, and most of the people that have gotten it are military of some sort or whatever. But most have like really good experiences. I know that they're the packing, at least. The shipping part is what ends up being a shit show, which, in your case is what you're worried about the most. Obviously you wouldn't want your shit to be mishandled in the packing, but the will it get to the island?
It's and that's the weird part, considering how it was explained to us anyway, how it's done. It's all thrown into a big wooden box, sealed up.
Mm-hmm.
We verify the sealing, and then it goes in the back of a truck and goes about its way. Like, how can you mess that up?
Yeah.
How do you mess that up?
I mean, have you ever met a supply marine? Just so you know.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Yes, I have. Great people. Great people. The
Absolutely.
best people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Best friends you could possibly ask for too.
Yeah. Not an MOS that gets people that couldn't make it as cooks. No.
No. It is not,
so
it is not the back end. Nope.
I did want to say that it was very, very good hanging out. It had been a while, and it felt like you needed it.
I did.
You needed a good hang. Even though, I mean, like, even though we dual purposed a hang with a goodbye, but at the same time, it was
I
good.
needed an outlet. I may not be the most personable person. Hanging out isn't necessarily a strong suit. However, even some of the extremely introverted people need onesie and twosie interactions.
Once a year.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. I mean, the battery's been so full that it's starting to be like the total charge is starting to lower down now because it's constantly at full. So you get depleted a little bit.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So now I'm good for like the next 3 years at least.
No, stop. Stop. Now I have an excuse to go to the islands.
You do.
And it's gonna be oh hey,
oh my god, you're here.
What's
That's so
up?
crazy.
Oh, it's so crazy. I'm down the road. But also, like, put me up, because I'm not gonna pay for Airbnb prices,
Oh god, no. Yeah. It's if we can wing a slightly bigger living space, with an additional room or something. We're trying to see if there's a way to get what we want at the price point that we want, while also taking people that have already stated that they're going to be coming over and have already started the financial shifting and shenanigans to be able to visit. So
Okay.
yeah, we're trying to take
So,
things into account, but
as much as you can.
yeah.
Yeah. So has there already been a planification of your maternals and Snix's maternal coming?
So Better Halves is definitely going to be
Yeah.
showing up at least once, maybe even a couple of times. Because she just kind of, she's retired. She's she's got nothing better to do.
I do what I want.
Yeah, like
Right.
just do whatever she wants to do. So she's got plans to come over. My parental side likely won't be able to, but once maybe, and that's pretty much it.
The entire time you're out there.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's extenuating circumstances. Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is a true to form. We will be on our own. This will be our first opportunity to cater to ourselves, to have, our own house, not anywhere near, family members or anything like that we have easy access to or readily available. So every decision is ours and ours to make, only taking ourselves into account.
Which freedom.
Yeah.
There is some freedom to that.
There is some freedom to that. I'm looking forward to it. That's on top of
Yeah,
being
and at this
terrified
point,
of the move.
it's yeah, but I mean, oh well, this is gonna upset so and so because we're so far from them or whatever. Not no mo. You don't worry about that shit.
Yeah, no more.
That's on them.
No more like, well, who are we going to for Thanksgiving, or who are we going to for Christmas, or anything like that? Because there's a good chance that, yeah, we could do flights and everything like that, but
yeah, okay. Well, I mean, it's expensive as fuck, so yeah.
You come to us.
That's, yeah.
You come to us.
You want to come? Come vacation over here. It's so cool. Check it out.
Look at it.
Behold.
It's an island.
Look at it. It's not floating on.
You can't dig down the center and just reach the ocean.
You can't dig. Yeah, yeah. So speaking of, before we get into some longer material, so God of War has, at the point of release for this podcast, it's already been out. However, right now, time of recording, the all of the reviews came out, and
yeah,
we're talking about 10 out of 10, like the large majority.
All but
so
two.
Game Informer, Metacritic, OpenCritic 3, 4, and GameSpot gave them 95, 94, 94, and a 9 out of 10. Respectively, but yeah, it's looking like it's going to be another, just like when the first one came out, and just holy shit. Yeah.
What are
this game?
What are the odds of this happening?
Of what?
Sequential, just out of the park hits for a studio, for this kind of game, this kind of storytelling.
So this is one of those where Sony trusted Cory Barlog to a point that, like, this was going to be not just his reputation, but like this was make or break for him, right? Like as head director for the studio, this would have bankrupted Santa Monica studio if it failed. Like that would have been it, death of a franchise. And I'm talking about the first one, not Ragnarok. 2018's God of War, it would have completely ruined it because it had been by that point, I think 10 years since there had been a God of War game, and yeah, the studio trusting the creative voice of the person that was put in charge of it.
Speaking of which,
And
forgive
it's
the
almost
ignorance.
like,
Forgive the
oh,
ignorance real quick, just for clarification purposes.
yep,
How much of the previous team from the previous God of Wars
right.
were in 2018's God of War, were a part of the development?
A large chunk of it, but not all.
Okay.
So, Corey Barlog was lead animator for God of War 2005, God of War 2, Chains of Olympus, God of War 3, and Ghost of Sparta. So, it had been 8 years, not 10 years. And then he came back. Then he went in 2013. He did Tomb Raider, and then
The new one?
2018 back to
Like the revamp of Tomb Raider?
he was cinematics director for that one. Yeah.
Okay.
So and then by God of War, he was game director and story writer, and then for Ragnarok, he became one of the what's Daniel Jackson's when he rises.
Ascension.
He was ascended. So Corey Barlog for Ragnarok went from game director to producer. So now it's
a higher power.
I'm giving you money. Yeah, I'm giving you money. You just don't fuck it up. But no, I mean in the God of War, the Raising Kratos video that I've spoken many times and you still haven't seen.
I totally watched it twice already.
Yep, twice. Yeah, it was a hoot and a half. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't give you figures because they did have another IP that was being created around the same time that they were developing God of War 2018, and then that fell apart. That IP didn't go anywhere.
Do you remember what it was?
It was sci-fi of some sort. It looked good.
The only reason
they do talk about it in Raising Kratos.
The only reason why I ask is I was interested to see if they had done anything in between that there could be some connecting tissue about because of how drastic of a difference, God of War 2018
right.
was to the previous. And if he was cinematic director of the rebranding of Tomb Raider, which, regardless of how you felt about the mechanics, looked beautiful. Like,
yeah.
Obviously, there's some connecting tissue there about this man's capabilities to kind of inject a little bit of life.
If I remember correctly, wasn't Tomb Raider also a one shot? Like there was never a loading screen?
I believe so. There may have been loading screens for certain aspects, just by nature of there had to be.
Right.
Background videos, things like that. But
yeah, so God of War has the one shot, and so does Ragnarok. So it is like you're just watching a movie.
Continuous. Nice.
It keeps going. I mean, obviously, you do have cinematics and things that break it up, but it's never like a still shot in the back that's being shown while text on the bottom while you have a loading bar. Like it's never that. So there's the connective tissue. But now, I mean, so we're looking at a game that might be another perfect game 4 years later. But yeah, I'm excited. We'll be talking about it. What's up?
Is this like Kojima level capabilities here? Because like regardless of how you like any one person feels about Kojima Productions or any of his previous games, it's tough to argue against, his capability to process direction and get that displayed in a medium.
Well, the Cory Barlog,
Yeah, because this is like, I realize it may sound like I'm putting a little too much stress into this, but
yeah,
it feels rare. Like 2 games in a row, as well received as
in
they
the same
are,
series.
especially in the same series. Like that's kind of what's
Um,
elevating it for me a little bit here.
Yeah, I would put it like, yeah, because for any medium, right, for movies or whatever, um,
It kind of gets lost the further in you go with the series.
yeah, right, where there's always like a dip
Yep.
or a plateau. Yeah, I don't know. At this point, it's exciting shit,
Yeah.
and I cannot wait. Like, I am terrible at spoilers for movies. Like, I knew what a bunch of Marvel movies were gonna be before, and it wasn't just like me guessing, even though me guessing and oh yeah, I guess they did that because I read the comics, but like actually actively going out to try to find spoilers online. For this game, I have not. And
So you
I
you want to be
want
genuinely engrossed
I
in this.
want
Yeah,
to
yeah.
be, yeah, like I am only doing like PlayStation or IGN, like official people that are under like embargoes that they can't show too much. Those are the ones that I'm watching.
Yeah.
Um, and speaking of watching, so God of War obviously doing well, but Last of Us, the first one, did fucking fantastic.
Mhm.
And we got news that it's being converted into an HBO show, and we have Mr. Mandalorian and baby bear. What was her name from Game of Thrones? Um, anyway,
I'm trying to remember. I'm terrible with
yeah,
names.
she's gonna play Ellie, and turns out that it's gonna be a 9 episode run. So I know you haven't played Last of Us,
No.
but 9 episodes. I hope they do well, because 9 episodes could only take us to about a quarter of the game if they want to do it right.
So I was gonna ask about that. It seems like what they're trying to do is the worst case scenario is that it just doesn't work out after the first season. They got their 9 episodes in, which is usually what an HBO miniseries would be. So they got
Right.
their 9 episodes in. That's what they financially planned for. That's what the actors had time slotted everything for. So it seems like they're preparing for the possibility that after this first season they just scrap it, go about their day. They did it, it's in their belt, it's good. Everybody moves on. I was wondering how. Actually, here's a question for you, right? With 9 episodes,
Yeah.
okay, and you've played the first game, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Within 9 episodes,
Mhm.
what do you think that they would have to take out if they wanted a meaningful story to be told in 9 episodes? What from the game would they have to take out? Well, like aside from like mechanics of like searching through stuff and a
Right.
little mini side quest or something, like what do they have to remove? Something is going.
So it's funny you say the side quest, because it's already been shown that they're going to include parts from the DLC.
Integrated
Um,
in?
Yeah. As either backstory, flashbacks, or whatever they're going to do.
What was the DLC
So
for people like me who didn't play it?
so the main game is basically Ellie and Joel making their trek across the country, trying to get to various locations to find a cure for this plague. The DLC is based around Ellie, where um, her as a teenager and her friend, um, and they end up turning out to be lesbian friends, girlfriends.
Mm.
Um, they so we get that love story for Ellie, and it is very sweet, and it also shows us why she's kind of full of rage
Okay.
in the main story. But they already showed the girlfriend in the trailer, and like her and Ellie like hanging around, like it's a frame for frame rip off from the video game where they're in a carousel type of like date. So now what would they have to take? I don't think that is the appropriate question. I think the appropriate question is how far will they take the story with it making sense, and like you can just imagine what the rest of the story would be if it was canceled after season 1. We've seen these buildings, these collapsed buildings of downtown Pittsburgh. They're in the video game, they're in the trailer, and they're very iconic. Just kind of one kind of fell on top of the other and is
Yeah.
diagonal. So what happens in Pittsburgh is it's to the point that it is a make or break moment for Ellie and Joel, and obviously they make it. But it's they could end it with that, and
Okay.
then like they persevered, and they like the imagination. Well, in future seasons, you would have seen that they kept. Now that they were a team, they were able to persevere together and make it to the. So that's why I think they're gonna do like just this quarter of the story. Like you said, there's going to be a lot of jumping of like mechanics
Right.
or little tiny things in the game that obviously are memorable to us, like making a shank. Haha, you need a piece of tape, you need a piece of glass, you need a piece of metal. Ta-da, shank. Um, Shit like that, I don't think. I mean, maybe they'll do like a little slight nod, like Ellie like rustling through a kitchen and opening up a
I was gonna say they're gonna have to do
um
something to kind of like
yeah.
showcase how what were they called? Clickers? What
So
was
clickers are in the trailer themselves.
right? But what?
They're
Well,
at the end of the trailer.
they're gonna have to like
Um
showcase how those work for the show for people to understand how it works within the
yeah.
show and
Yeah, I mean, so Joel's special ability in the video game is basically he has spidey sense, where he puts his ear to the wall, and he can hear where all the other clickers are. So in the game, you're just moving around very slowly, trying not to make any noise so the clickers don't pounce on you. Um, so that would be something that, like, how do you translate that into the video game? But you know what? There's fucking 20 years from the start of the game, when the pandemic, the plague hits, to when Ellie is part of the story. So we could get a flashback where he learns how to, he was being hunted in the woods by them, and he had to learn how to, or some shit like that,
something just to fill it in to explain it.
Yeah, just to explain it away. How the fuck is he? How does he have superhuman hearing? Well, because of this. So I'm excited for it because of the level of production value that can go into HBO shows. The clicker looked fantastic. The like there is a lot of hate for this little actress
Is
in
there?
the role, and there is, and it's just it's the same hate that like a bunch of other actresses have faced because of their roles in Hollywood. It's just like, oh, this is just fucking dumb idiots that, you know, behind the power of their screens, they can type away and do
Yeah.
whatever the fuck they want.
Keyboard
Which go
warriors.
fuck yourselves. Um, yeah, exactly. Keyboard commandos, and it. We loved her as, I think it's like Liana something, right? What the fuck? What is her name? God, girl, bear.
Pedro Pascal. Bella Ramsey's
So
Ellie.
Liana Mormont. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as Liana Mormont, she was a fantastic character. She was a fantastic actress for the role. So we loved her as that, but just the fact that
Oh
it,
yeah.
it is a complete lack of imagination of people that like once they see it in whatever fucking way, once they're told, hey, this is what the character looks like, well, why are they looking like this? That doesn't look like, are you a fucking 10-year-old that you can't imagine that they look differently?
What is that called? Cognitive dissonance or something? Like, do you go like this and now
Yeah.
everybody's gone from existence?
Oh, object permanence.
There you go, object permanence.
Yeah. Well, whatever it is, everybody's loving Pedro Pascal, because the few lines that he does have in the trailer are like they could have been the voice actor that did Joel.
Okay.
He's not, but it is very good. And I mean, Pedro Pascal, he's Chilean, but he grew up in Texas. So, and Joel's character is a Texan dude. So, all right, he just
knows
happens
how-
to be
yeah.
brown,
Yeah.
right? Like the. So exciting! It's coming out in January, like January 15th, I think. So it is exciting. It's coming up.
Does the 9 episodes, does that worry you? Like, just in general?
So I would say both yes and no.
Okay.
Let me hit the no first, because HBO consistently has, since the streaming era, they realize that people will stay more than 42 minutes or however long for a 1-hour show, right?
Right.
They've been doing it with their series, like Game of Thrones was consistently 50 plus minutes, but also they started going over. So they started doing, hour and 16-minute episode for the Battle of the Bastards, right? Like it's a fucking long ass episode, but it is jam packed, and they didn't want to break it down to two episodes.
Long for a purpose, yeah.
Right. So they could definitely jam pack with content in 9 episodes. Now, here's where I don't know enough about this, but speculatively could be bad, and I would be concerned, is that the way that shows now, and I mean, peel behind the, look behind the curtain, shows somebody will write a show and then try to find a buyer, right? So they'll take them to Netflix. Netflix says yes. Okay, well, it's a Netflix show. They say no. Well, fuck it. Let's take it to HBO Max. Let's see what they say. They say no. Fuck it. Let's take it to Paramount. And usually that isn't a problem when a streaming service already owns the same group holding, owns the whatever whatever domain owns the IP that's trying to be produced. So like um Star Trek, of course, was going to be on Paramount Plus.
Right.
Um freaking um House of the Dragon was of course going to be on on HBO. Shit like that. Um but when it's an idea from a video game, you could take it anywhere. So what does that mean? That means that you are burdened by who you pitch it to first. And this is something that not a lot of people know. So if I pitched it to ABC first, then I have to make it 42 minutes to include the 18 minutes of commercials. So then when I take it to Netflix, it's a 42-minute episode, regardless if now it's a Netflix show. No, not dog. It started off as this. It is now set up as this because it's a fucking multi-camera show with the scenes being written in 5-minute intervals to fit in
Commercials.
Yeah. So HBO obviously wouldn't have that problem. So if it is 9 minutes and the original intended buyer was a main channel, a TV channel, we may have a problem in that 45-minute episodes. I don't know. I don't know if that's enough. It would take a whole lot of good writing and good acting to give it even if it is a quarter, give it enough to a quarter of the total story. Give it enough of a boost that it'll carry the story along. But I'm optimistic. Whereas other, you can throw in Nvidia, like they just don't fucking learn. They don't fucking learn. HBO learned from season 8 of Game of Thrones. They fucking threw so much money and so much production and good writing into House of Dragon season 1 that, all right, okay, maybe for Last of Us they don't want this to be wasted money for this IP. So
you're saying they're gonna
hopefully.
it's 9 episodes, but each episode, your positive here or your positive hopeful take is that each episode is gonna be worth it.
Yeah.
Because there's only 9 of them, and they're not trying to mess this up. So okay.
Correct. Yeah. I haven't heard anything that they're already greenlit for season 2, which usually the sad part is that because it's coming out in January, for some shows we would have heard by now if it's been greenlit for season 2.
Yeah. I think they're waiting. I think they're waiting, honestly.
Yeah.
It's because again, it is 9 episodes, so they have a little bit more time gap for as far as recording goes in between, a typical seasonal show ending and then the new season starting. So I think what they're waiting for is the pilot episode to air.
Yeah, and that's gonna it's gonna be episode 1 is going to be so interesting because it's the same as I Am Legend, where people are going to be confused and like, oh, it's a zombie movie. No, bitch, it's a fucking vampire movie. What the hell are you talking about? But people are going to misconstrue what Last of Us is. They are technically zombies, but it's a fucking spore. It's a no kidding mushroom that is controlling people. It has jumped from just zombifying ants and other insects to being able to zombify people, to spread the spores, to continue the species of the spore.
That's terrifying.
So yeah, the fuck it is. Um, yeah, yeah. This is one of those where like, like the irrational fear of like, I don't like stepping over grates while walking on the sidewalk because I can fall through.
Mm-hmm.
It happens, like the chances of that happening are, 0.00000001 or whatever, but it's enough.
You're saying there's a
It's enough.
chance, is what I just heard.
You're saying there's a chance. Yeah. Uh, where, yeah, like don't touch the mushroom, dude. Don't.
Here's the question then.
Yeah.
Throughout this kind of storytelling, one of the things that production teams and writers, one of the tropes they fall into is the extreme need to explain everything. So are we gonna see that? Are we gonna see the start of?
So the game itself doesn't have a lot of exposition for how it started.
Mhm.
So it's not like Division where like you have to understand how the Chimera virus came about.
Mhm.
You are just bam. This happened. It happened. Like at this point, let's try to. I mean, it is. Let's try to find a cure, but it's never a. Well, we've tried doing this. We've tried doing that. It's literally we've tried everything and everything else failed. This might be the cure,
Okay.
and it is very simplistic in that the story is the journey and not the destination. So
I hope that gets translated to
well,
video, because it's, again, especially with this medium, that trope is so prevalent that the audience needs to know. They need to understand how something
yeah.
started, how they need the
Well,
umbrella
so
corporation to exist, and they need the T
right.
virus and all that.
The way that it starts, you get, flashbacks instead of like, so think of like the Division where you play the first mission and then all of a sudden you get the cinematic of like the newsreel footage
Hmm.
of like
Which I thought was actually really
during
well
Black
done.
Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
during Black Friday, the commonly known as the Green Flu, blah 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 blah. Um, in Last of Us, you get weird, very simple uh introduction through the titles sequence where it is you see a mushroom and then you see the zombie mushroom the zombified ant with the mushroom on its head, and then you see an x-ray of like a skull with like spores going through the brainstem, and then you see
Are
the
there
fucking zombies.
throughout the game? Do you see
Mm.
like newspaper clippings or
Yep. You
stuff
see a
like
lot
that?
a lot of missing ads,
Yeah.
but it was so quick. It was very um there wasn't too much preparation and it was worldwide.
Yeah.
So
I'm hoping
think of it
that's what
kind
they
of
do
like,
then.
yeah, think of it like the crappy Mark Wahlberg movie,
The Happening.
The Happening,
What's happening?
where
The
it's
Happening.
just the happening. What's happening? Yeah. So it's
Yeah,
very
okay.
much like that. Like all of a sudden happened everywhere,
Gotcha.
and we never get the, even in Last of Us 2, we never get the, was this bioengineered? Was this
It happened.
it happened.
Yeah.
And yeah, which if they end up doing something like that where they have to explain how it happened, I'm in agreement with you that it would detract from the story.
I think it would. I think it
But
would.
I wouldn't be pissed off at it just because people are dumb and we're working for the least common denominator.
If they felt the need to explain, okay, fine. The best way I think that they would be able to implement that is through the title sequence. As this person is directed, and
Yeah.
the title sequence is going
Yeah.
through, you have little snippets of news anchors or a
Well,
newspaper fly over the screen or something like that.
so it's such a it's so well done in the video game for even explaining um like like the Pokedex moment of introducing a new character or a new enemy. It's always very quick, and everybody, like the characters, already know, which is why it's crucial that they focus on the fact that from day one of infection to us picking up the story, it's 20 years. So like everybody already knows all as much information as is needed, right? So there's runners, there criers, runners. Is it criers? Anyway, there's two like early sets. Um, there's clickers, there's bloaters, and there's another one. But basically, um, clickers are the ones that did not die from the infection yet. Um, the and the cordyceps itself has grown so profusely around the head, around the face of the individual, that it's covered their eyes, and now they have to echolocate. And yeah, my ex got very good at making the sound that they make. Future Anthony, insert right here. Yeah, yeah, it is so scary, dude. And like I'd be watching TV in the middle of the night with the lights off, and then just oh, yep, nope. Stop. Don't stop it. Don't do that. Nope, no thank you.
Who is this for?
Who is what for?
Who's this show for?
I mean, the zombie genre is basically for everybody, right?
Right.
But it's also it's going to be hard to it's going to be hard for
I was gonna try to be the mature one there. Okay.
yeah, it's going to be hard to they have to make it the audience has to make it past episode 1 to fully understand that it is a father child story, and whether it hits harder if it's a girl or doesn't hit as much because it is a girl. um I don't know. It is a good story of learning to let go from the dad and accepting, you know, the coming of age of your child,
Right.
like letting them walk to school. Okay,
Moving
moving on.
Yeah.
So so yeah, I mean, it has so many different categories that could be pinned to it. Um, it's very similar to The Road,
Okay.
um, where it is, you know, boy and father just traversing the wasteland. It's post-apocalyptic, it's zombie, it's human perseverance. Like there's so many aspects to the story. Um, and like I've heard some people just break it down like it's a love story of you keep going for those that are no longer here. Um, which, spoiler alert, if you haven't played the game, there's a lot of loss in this game, a lot of loss. So it'll be interesting how they incorporate that, because kind of like Game of Thrones, where it's like, oh shit, I can't believe that dude just died. It's now, fuck me, this dude's dead now. Jesus. Okay, well, I don't know what the hell this story is now, and then you have to keep going. I am excited for what's his name, Ron Swanson. Um,
I only know him as Ron Swanson.
Nick Offerman.
There you go.
So he um he plays a character that in the past had worked with Joel, and basically he took an entire town and booby trapped the entire town um against zombies and against marauders or
Right.
raiders or whatever you want to call it. So only people that had been in the know, because he would write on the walls, right? Like booby traps ahead. A zombie wouldn't be able to read it,
Hmm.
so fucking zombies would just blast through. But then, well, how do you do that for people that can read? Uh, so there's booby traps that you can take and you can circumvent to eventually get to him. But this dude, much like another character that will be important in the story, has had a lot of loss. And seeing the difference of how one person uses that loss to try to help others, this character shuts down and like, I don't want to be hurt by the world anymore. This is my town. Get the fuck out of it. So just seeing that complete different path that could have been one of the other characters, you're seeing it when it goes wrong.
Is
So
there going to be a big bad to this? Do you think?
the thing is that there are multiple big bads in the game.
Right.
So like one of the things that I disliked, having read the comics, that I disliked for Walking Dead is that they always did like a villain of the season instead of villain of the week. They did a villain of the season. And the thing is that in the comics, it just happened to be who was the most inconvenient, what was the biggest inconvenience at the time. And it was whether it was a horde that was 2 miles away that could easily overrun, so they have to worry about that, or it was big dude with the big dick trying to fucking steal all their shit and kill everybody, or whether it was internal people being sick, or it was like all these different things. That's what the game is like, where you do have a new like remnants of the semblance of a US government still operating,
Hmm.
but it is very post-apocalyptic, where they're very authoritarian and like, get the fuck out of here, get the fuck back in your, there's martial law, there's curfews, the whole shebang. But then you have people that live outside the quarantine zones that are, raiders, marauders, people just out in the ether, just floating around, trying to stay
Yeah.
alive. Then there's the Fireflies. The Fireflies are like the quasi-terrorist group that the freedom fighters that are trying to have quarantine zone governments provide more sustenance for the people. And we're going to run into a lot of everybody has their own story and their own driving, their own reasons for why they do what they do. It could have been the same event that triggered multiple people, launched multiple people, but each one will have a different reaction to and reasoning behind why they do what they do. Definitely won't be a villain of the week type of thing.
I mean, with only 9 episodes, like how much of those separate stories are they really going to be able to tell?
Pretty easily they could do all of them.
With an end still make it about Joel and Ellie? Okay.
Yep. Because it's... So somebody at work was watching Band of Brothers and switched over to watching the Pacific and told me, Hey, so as a Marine vet, have you watched The Pacific and Band of Brothers? Yeah. Okay. Uh, The Pacific is kind of like a ripoff to Band of Brothers, isn't it? I'm like, what do you mean? Well, I mean, they talk the same. It's basically the same story. I'm like, we're talking about 1940s men that went off and fought at the same time. Like, of course they're gonna talk the same. It's the same jokes. It's the same. Like, they're still like, what the fuck are you saying?
It's weird, the
Well,
similarities.
right. Well, it's not good. I don't think it's any. I don't think it's better. It actually might be worse than Band of Brothers because uh like you feel so connected to every single one of the men in Easy Company. I'm like, okay, well, so first off, the book is based on, or the series, the Band of Brothers series is based on one book by Stephen Ambrose, and literally the entire book is just interviews of every single, like he follows the chronology of the unit, and then insert here one paragraph, two paragraphs from interviewing the people that were in that battle or in this moment. Whereas for the Pacific, it's based on two books and the life accounts of John Bassalone. Each book was written by a person that fought in that all the battles that they show, um, but it is their account as opposed to it's the story of the unit where you have, by the end of Band of Brothers, you know, like hundreds of characters, hundred of people that were real, and it's fascinating. But when it's a book about one dude with that, I mean, Robert Leckie, he was a writer before he went to the Pacific, and he chose to not write anyone's name. So it's like Chuckler, Hoosier, Harvard, Ivy League, like everybody got a nickname. No names, bro. And it was on purpose. So you won't get this feeling of like, I know everybody in the unit. No, you know one dude. So for Last of Us, I think it is going to be, if they're showing everything, it's going to be switching the perspective from um, our character is striving to do this, whereas and there's conflict, there's an obstacle to face. I think it's going to be more our our characters are doing this and all of this is happening around them. Whether they're affected, that's,
That
you
kind of
know,
bleeds into my next question then, because some of the biggest one of the biggest reasons why games like this do so well, why people get so attached to them, is they feel a connection because they're the ones controlling the main characters. So
yeah,
even if there's not like a dialogue wheel, where you can choose how to respond,
right,
you're still responsible for maintaining the well-being of these characters, right? It's your
yeah,
actions directly that either continues or ends their story. With adaptations, that is inherently, because it's an adaptation, that entire control, that connection is removed. So I guess my question is more, or is less,
well,
can they tell all these stories, and more, can they keep that impact? Obviously a slightly different measure, but can they keep that
yeah.
impact within 9 episodes, all the characters interacting, still making it about Joel and Ellie? Can they still give you that feeling of connection that made the game fit so well with people?
So, have you ever seen a video breaking down the cinematography for Silence of the Lambs?
I feel like I have. Um,
So, if I'm if I'm talking, um, so this is perfect. If I'm talking, I'd be Hannibal Lecter, right?
hmm,
They show Clarice standing, walking. So walking towards the camera,
Mm-hmm.
and you know that she's looking at Hannibal on the other side, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she's looking towards the camera. So then the switch of the angle to now we're looking at Hannibal slightly off center,
Yeah.
right? So that cinematography, that trick is to show that they're not on the same level.
Yeah.
Like Hannibal has the upper hand on Clarice. Well, then at a certain point it becomes this,
It shifts.
but it's only for like a frame or two, and then it's back to being off center. And it was that line that Hannibal felt like, okay, bitch. Like Clarice says something like, "Oh yeah, that's why you ate your patients," and it's like, boom, we're on the same level, bro. Like, don't fuck with me. And then Hannibal kind of leans back and like, no, okay, you got me there, but the sparring session still continues. Those little moments, like, I hope they're able to capture that, because it does provide what does not translate directly from video game to a movie or a TV show. The dialogue itself, there's going to be a lot that kind of like in like Lord of the Rings, how it's stripped. A lot of it is directly from the book.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. I think they're going to do the same for this, where the dialogue was already fucking fantastic. So you're only building on it. You're not replacing.
Okay.
And if they do, well, maybe modernize it a little bit more. Because
that was.
if I remember correctly, I think it was 2014 that the game came out, and the story is supposed to take place, starts off in 2014, and then 20 years later, 2034, and the world is a mess. So insert more Teslas into the background.
So I was gonna ask, is that
Little details like that.
Yeah,
So
is
because
that
I
gonna
don't
shift
know
it?
if it's supposed to be, 2014 in the show or not. I've read yes, and I've read no. Nothing definitive.
Does that remove some of the integrity of the original story for you? Like if it's 2014, and let's say the show, 6 years later they're making a real adaptation, or
Yeah.
starting recording of a real adaptation.
Well,
There's a lot that can happen
it's
in
like,
6 years. So
yeah. So it's the hard part between. So like, did you watch the last James Bond?
I did not.
You know the story?
Mm-hmm. I do.
Okay. So they held off on releasing the movie. Spoiler alert, it dealt with a virus and a pandemic. And they held on to it because they didn't want to fucking release it in the middle of the goddamn pandemic. And they were like, when the fuck do we release this? Much like Bert Kreischer's movie, the studio, Legend Studios, is freaked the fuck out to release a movie right now where it basically glorifies Russia. And what can you do about what is in the real world versus what's in Fantasyland? I don't think that the 8 years since the game released, it would be a problem only had the pandemic gone differently. Like if the pandemic would have been done by like December 2020, then it would have been like, holy shit, that was a close one. But we're still
dealing with it.
Yeah. So that I've seen the meme so many times now that it's still funny, but it's getting more and more sad. still funny but sad now is the somebody wrote something like I used to watch alien movies, and I was always surprised at the idiots that would go up to them or deny that aliens were real. Now, after the pandemic, I don't have that feeling anymore.
Yep.
Um, and I think because of how we reacted to COVID, pretty sound that like it almost confirms that yeah, no, we would definitely have fucking zombies if this virus was released, if these spores were released. Yeah, people would fucking no, it's not real. Like immediately get eaten. So
You could always stop eating me. You're letting the liberal media take over what's
yeah,
happening.
let me shank you through the eyeball. Okay. Yeah, if they keep it 2014, then so the problem with that is the plausibility of timelines where people, oh, what year is it? Oh, present day. Oh, that's why they stopped doing years. They just do present day. This is happening right now, right? As opposed to in 2022. But if they do like this is 2014, I don't know, maybe some people would be like, oh yeah, we would have acted this way because we saw it happen in 2022, so or 2020, 2021, we saw it happen.
But if they shifted over a few years, you don't think it would like drastically change the story in any way? You don't think the connections would be lost or made? It would just be
Not really. I
shifting
mean,
over a
it's
few
not
years?
like it's not like we developed a fucking supersonic jet plane, since then. Rest in peace, Concorde. Or like developed a bullet train that can go from New York to Seattle in an hour. Like we didn't do it, so yeah. Go on.
No, it's just look. How do I say this? If something can come out of it, I'm all for top 1% throwing money out like that. Let's make a bullet train. Let's make it this. Let's do this. Let's do that. But something needs to come out of it. There needs to be an accident in a scientist's laboratory and silly putty comes out of it. You know what I mean? Like, something's got to come out. You can't just keep.
I'm waiting.
Yeah, I think we all are.
I'm waiting
at this point.
Yeah, I mean,
like, okay, bullet train didn't work, but the technology in the bullet train is kind of nice. Maybe, I don't know, implement
and now we
that
have Iron
elsewhere. Like, do something.
Yeah, that'd be nice and grand. Speaking of tech, I saw an article that I sent you on Star Trek.
That's transition, yeah. What aspect of Star Trek?
The captains.
Not so much tech, but personnel. Personnel is personnel is an iffy. It's a strange topic for Star Trek, which is weird to say because Star Trek is based on personnel with a backup of tech.
Right.
Yeah, Gene Roddenberry wanted to tell a socialist, rose petals, exploratory. We've been able to put something in front of humanity that says, hey, there's something bigger than us. We need to calm the hell down, come together, and deal with this brand new thing in front of us, right? But in order to get to that point, the amount of fear, control, destruction, just waylaying of the human populace had to occur first in Roddenberry's vision. But when it comes to, after everything's been said and done, Starfleet has been established, the Federation has been established, even in the earlier years, when the Federation was just, I think, 4 species total. There always seems to be, looking over the article now, it's dealing specifically with why captains don't often search for higher rank or higher status than captain. And this is the part that kind of boggles my mind, is the fact that anybody would question why that is. Anybody that's done work with a group that enjoys their work, they don't want to stop doing that work. And they know if they get promoted, or they get put in charge, or they get shifted, they get moved somewhere else, they're going to stop doing that work that they enjoy so much, that they have impact on, or that, they feel safe or comfortable in. And the next step above captain in the Star Trek universe is admiral. And anybody that's been in the military, anybody that's been in DoD civilian standings, anybody that's been in heavily orchestrated leadership positions knows the admirals, the higher ups, they make decisions that nobody wants to ever make. Basically, what it boils down to is the question as to why captains don't want to shift over to Admiralty. And it's strictly, captains get to do the most difficult but most fun job within Starfleet. They go out and explore strange new worlds. They're the ones that seek out new life and new civilizations. Admiralty waits until the captains are done with the initial job, and then they come in and maintain control or maintain status quo or anything like that. There's even been some movies that will show the Enterprise having 5, 6, 7 different captains on board, and you can see the issue right out the gate, where everybody's trying to take control of the situation. Everybody's trying to dictate how that particular crew operates instead of one single leadership and everybody is an underling, and then stuff gets done. And that's usually what ends up happening when admirals start getting involved, is that everybody tries to have the bigger dick than the person next to them. It's... Nobody wants to be an admiral because nobody wants to stop progressing in Star Trek. Nobody wants to stop pushing forward, because if they stop pushing forward, they become complacent. And when they become complacent, they start falling back to old habits, old human habits of, this is mine, that's mine, I'm better than you, I know what's good and you don't. You see it in Enterprise, the Star Trek series. I think it was like 4 or 5 seasons long. It was pre-Kirk era, and it was very much like they didn't even trust transporters for anything other than bulk moving of goods or machinery, stuff like that. And the few times within the series they used it had just drastically terrible things happen to the people that get teleported. It's a really easy answer, and it's strictly nobody wants to go higher than captain because they have to stop doing the thing they love, and they have to start worrying about status quo. There was a running joke. Ensign Kim for Voyager was an ensign for 7 seasons, and he arguably, like, without him, as a matter of fact, there's a couple of episodes where without him there would be no more Voyager.
Mm-hmm.
But he never got above ensign, Paris got lieutenant, got busted back down, got lieutenant again. Now, thematically, that needed to happen with Paris because of his background, because of who he was, how he got onto Voyager, who his dad was, etc. That worked for the storytelling of who Paris is and his progress. Kim was supposed to represent the everyman, the rosy cheeked, innocent guy, like innocent person that you don't want anything bad to happen to him because he's got so much hope and he's just filled with love and he wants everybody to blah 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 blah. So showing a desire to move up, which could be viewed as selfishness or as paying too much attention to oneself over that socialist idea that is Star Trek, of caring about other people. You see it with Kim, you see it with Riker, who for the majority of the times, or for the majority of the time within TNG, he denied the captain's chair 4 times because he wanted to stay with Picard. But one, the idea they tried floating around is that he loved Picard so much and he was such a good leader and this and that and the other thing. And they kind of doubled down on that with the Picard series too, where despite Riker's obvious elevation throughout the Federation, he still, when Picard came calling, he still fell under Picard immediately. The one time throughout TNG's lifespan that Riker actually took over the captain's chair legitimately was when Locutus became a character, where Picard got taken over by the Borg. As far as promotion, as far as in that world, promotion is a very weird concept, because typically we think promotion, we think higher pay, we think higher access to better goods, we think medical care, we think better dental programs, whatever, right? But in Star Trek, that's just part of existing. You get that from existing. The society as a whole had to earn it violently, traumatically, tragically, but the end result is that everybody gets that. So instead of a promotion, instead of giving you higher pay and better access to stuff, basically what it does is allows you to affect more. So instead of money being the currency, what you do, what you provide becomes your currency. It becomes the reason for promotion. It becomes how much of an impact you have on your personal life. All of that's dictated by how much can you affect the mission, how much can you affect Starfleet, how much can you affect the crew that you're surrounded by. So the idea of promotion from captain to admiralty kind of separates that a little bit, because the Admiralty is now more dictatorship mixed with democracy, mixed with socialism. But it's definitely, we're making decisions whether you like it or not. Whereas up to captainhood, yes, that's there, but you're taking your immediate surroundings into account and ensuring that they survive. Whereas Admiralty is, like the example in the article was, an admiral is the one that's going to tell the captain, you don't get to go save this ship that's let out a distress beacon, because if you did that, it would start a war. Like, nobody wants to get up to that point to make those decisions. It's definitely a lot of comfortable, I'm good where I'm at. I have just enough control over my immediate surroundings as a captain to where I get to do what I want to do, but I still have to take into account who's around me and ensuring everybody survives and so on. Whereas Admiralty, like you're making decisions left and right, and you have to pretend that the people you're making the decisions about don't, in the end, don't fully matter, because the end result is what matters, not the people affected by the decisions on each step of the way. And there's a lot of people that just don't, a lot of captains in that universe that simply don't want that on their conscience. They don't want that on their shoulders, because that would affect what makes them worth something in this world. Because it completely alters how they have to look at things. There's very few exceptions where how somebody was as a captain, they're able to carry that on to themselves as an admiral. Janeway, for instance, before she was a captain, she was a scientist, like blue shirt scientist, right?
Yeah.
She becomes a captain. That scientist in her never leaves. She just now takes on the added responsibility on top of that strong desire for hypothesis and figuring out the answer and scientific readings and this and that, even though she has an entire science division at her beck and call. She can't get away from the scientist in her. So then she has to find a way to mix captainhood in with being a scientist. Well, her as an admiral, she does the same thing. She's still a scientist. And she's able to position herself within the Admiralty to still be a scientist, but also make, administrative decisions that only admirals can make. So there are exceptions of people that go through the rank structure and get all the way to admiral because, like you've said in the past, they want to be the change that they want to see.
Yeah.
And when we were in, one of the most common things, when we were in the military, one of the most common things that we were told, or at least that I was told several times, whenever I would bitch about how something was being done or structured, was, if you don't like how it's done, get the rank, get put in charge of it, change it. Okay, well, unsurprisingly...
Which, I mean, they show that with Kirk, don't they?
They do, yes. To be honest, it depends on which version of Kirk you're looking at, because it's the cavalierness of earlier Kirk has seemed to dictate how Kirk is in general with every iteration of Kirk in the future, and people kind of forget that there are representations of older, wiser, learned Kirk that isn't as cavalier because he learned his lesson. As a matter of fact, the best example of proper cavalier to wizened captain that I've seen, number one top of the list, Picard. We see him as a wizened captain at the start of Next Generation, and throughout the series you learn that he was just as cavalier and just as carefree as Kirk in his youth. But there was a particular situation, and the reason why he has a prosthetic heart, or why he has heart issues that even with the current technology of the time they can't replace and fix him. He had one scenario occur that shocked him out of that cavalierness and allowed him to start, okay, I need to calm the fuck down. Like, the cavalier is great. It allows me to learn. It allows me to dare to dream, right? It allows me to take those steps forward to learn something, but I need to now start applying what I've learned instead of just continuously jumping the gun and shooting from the hip. The second best example of that transition from I get to do what I want to I have more responsibility to I have the most responsibility is Cisco, who was a commander starting in Deep Space Nine for the first 2 seasons, I think. And then he finally got promoted to captain. And then he got promoted to prophet. You see that that shift, because as a commander, he's not quite a captain, so there's a little bit more uh, uh, cavalier thought processes. There's a little bit more intermingling with lower ranks, or scouring the promenade, and actually being more directly involved, because that's what he's used to being as a commander. You're the captain, or when you're the captain, you send your commander out to do stuff. You send your number one, to get better integrated with the crew, or to better understand the crew, and you rely on those commanders to inform you, because you're busy with the overall processes of the ship. And there's a similarity here, right, between captains and admirals, and commanders and captains. But at the end of the day, you're a commander. You're kind of like the best of both worlds. You have some command presence, but you're able to mix in with the rest of the crew. But when it comes to captain to admiral, that is a massive leap, because you go from being in charge of a ship and having a say within Starfleet, to being in charge of ships and having a say in the Federation of Planets. So you go from a few hundred families on your little dinky starship to a few thousand worlds and a few hundred cultures. And just ultimately, people don't want that. People don't want that requirement on their shoulders. They don't want to be responsible for that. They want to be responsible for themselves and their immediate surroundings. And I think that's the biggest issue. They even call it, in the article, they even state admirals have to deal with the bureaucracy and mind-numbing politics of the Federation. Yeah. So I realized there was a lot of round robin talking in there, saying the same thing a few different ways. But I don't know. This article, the idea of contemplating a shift from captain to admiralty from captainhood to admiralty it's a little weird to consider, to look at, considering what Starfleet is, what it was birthed from, how humans as a species get to where they can create the Federation of Planets is just captainhood to admiralty seems like a no-brainer. Like, that's how you ensure your free-for-all. Let's push forward a brave new world, new life, new civilizations. You ensure that happens by continuing the process, continuing to go up the ranks in Starfleet, continuing to push this stuff. But that human nature of either I want full control or I want none, is still persistent, despite everything within the Star Trek universe they had to go through just to get to where they are, where they are at, depending on the series you're looking at. It's actually one of the reasons why Deep Space Nine is my favorite Star Trek series, because you got to see how the Federation, and specifically Starfleet, their way of doing things, how much it clashes with several other entities. And it kind of just all converges on one station, and they have to find a way to keep the burden of law, from the Federation and all the restrictions that go with the Federation, and how you maintain those while still maintaining freedom of culture for the Bajorans, or for Klingons, or for Ferengi, or for just literally anybody that calls that station home, especially right next to a wormhole, to a place filled with cultures that you've never experienced before, with rule sets and social restrictions that have never been an issue in the Alpha or Beta quadrants or anything like that. So I realize that that's probably a lot more than what was needed for a simple article, but it's just that I always appreciate dives like this into a lore like Star Trek, or
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Well, I
especially
think it was just written by somebody that doesn't really understand, because even now it's the same thing for, like, I know so many colonels and captains, naval captains, that they're more than happy to stay there.
yeah, yeah, because they
Especially
yeah,
like they'll write it out until they're either forced to retire or forced to put in for promotion.
yeah, and even then they
And
put in for promotion. They'll do the bare minimum so that they do not look good
mhm,
enough to promote. But hey,
yeah.
they still met the wicket. They put in for promotion. It's yeah, reading reading through the article. I mean, there's a couple of good points made. The mind numbing aspect of Admiralty. Um, whether you get promoted from time in service or from your actions or from your current emotional state or whatever. Um, some of the biggest things that I think this article kind of maybe touches on, but kind of misses the point in general, is that Star Trek, or Gene Roddenberry's initial vision of Star Trek, was a borderline utopian, like a utopian representation of humanity. This is what I think humanity should go to in order to be able to face the big bad of the unknown, right?
Mm,
And facing other cultures. But one of the reasons why Star Trek has lasted so long is they've been able to showcase comparable issues at the time that series is being shown, whatever series it is, to what is currently an issue within real world society. They're able to find a way to replicate that in this seemingly utopian place. And one of the biggest things, TNG did it really really well. Deep Space Nine found a way to incorporate other cultures that kind of mimicked social issues in the current culture, but that is what builds up the culture. So they were able to kind of mix it in there with Deep Space Nine, and then Voyager just kind of like went off the deep end as far as bringing in other cultures, and whether or not I think there's an imperialist backdrop with Voyager. Whether we have the right to impact something regardless of why we're there. But anyway, one of the things that people kind of miss, it doesn't matter where we're at. It doesn't matter time frame. Doesn't matter how we got there. At the end of the day, human nature will win out. It may not be because of money, or in Star Trek's terms, gold-plated latinum. It may not be for immediate personal gain and control, but there is something to be gained for going up the ranks, not going up the ranks, going out this direction of space, not going out that direction, saving that ship that might start a war, not saving the ship that might start a war, and it all comes down to who you are as a person, your impact in the society. In our case right now, it's monetarily. Right, that's the impact that we base a lot of stuff off of, is how much monetary or fiscal impact can you have. In Star Trek, it's what do you do? What kind of scientist are you? What impact in the sciences have you made? Are you just a worker bee? How good of a worker bee are you? Even then, there's still rank structure. Lower Decks proves that. The animated show, Lower Decks proves that even within the lowest of the low, there's still a very obvious rank structure. They make light of it, but we're still humans. There's still limitations, there's still restrictions, and there's still certain things that as a society we've kind of forced even into this utopian version. We've still forced it in, and in this particular case, it's we don't want to get away from what we enjoy doing. It's selfish, for sure.
Mm.
Because we have the intelligence, we have the background, we know what we're doing. We would make good admirals. We'd be able to continue leading, Starfleet and the Federation in a positive direction. But man, I really like being a captain. I really like having control of my ship and dictating how the mission goes and so on.
Yeah.
You can't do that as an admiral. You have to step back. Same thing with going from NCO to staff NCO. You know? So.
Stop fucking around.
Yeah, basically. As a captain, you can fuck around. As an admiral, you don't get to. You just.
I know Mo.
Yeah, you don't have the time or the capability of doing that. Sorry for that. That was a continuous drone in my voice.
No worries.
I'm always interested in this stuff.
I gotta rush. I love you.
Love you.
Enjoyed hanging out. Let's do
this again sometime.
Yeah, maybe like next week.
Sure. Yeah.
Wednesday. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. For everybody that's still listening, please go down to our socials. Follow us on Twitch, so you can catch some of the episodes live. You can catch Anthony continuing his epics into Modern Warfare, and
Probably, yeah.
And maybe at someday Apex, maybe.
So I'm literally waiting for you and Papa to be like, "Hey, we're ready. Let's go." Anytime I see you, anytime I see, every time I see you streaming it, I'm like, "You're streaming it right now," and I've got stuff I've got to do, or I can't dedicate time.
Thing with the thing.
Yeah, the sun's in my eyes. I've got a headache that's popping up. I'm only enjoying Call of Duty because I'm playing it with friends. I have not played it outside of streaming with friends.
Okay.
So.
Well. Until next time.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
And 3, 2, 1.